The late afternoon sun bled gold across the jagged ridgelines of Red Hollow Preserve, casting long shadows that flickered like ghosts along the canyon walls. Dust clung to Tom Granger's boots as he stepped out of the Land Rover and surveyed the landscape with a practiced eye. The silence was deeper here, as if the desert held its breath. Carol followed close behind, camera slung over her shoulder, her face shaded by a wide-brimmed hat. Her steps were slow but steady, measured more by instinct than effort. She scanned the rock ledges for movement, hoping to catch a glimpse of the elusive bighorn sheep that called this canyon home. Tom knelt beside a rock outcropping, running his fingers over the ridged surface. "This place hasn't shifted in millennia," he murmured. Carol smiled faintly. "Maybe, but it still remembers." They had a rare 72-hour wildlife research permit issued by the Bureau of Land Management, an exception carved out for Tom's previous work in paleobiology and Carol's award-winning wildlife photography. Red Hollow was closed to the public, designated as a sensitive fossil region prone to unpredictable seismic activity. But to Tom and Carol it felt like sacred ground. As they climbed deeper into the canyon, the terrain shifted. Iron-red cliffs gave way to slick white stone, streaked with mineral veins that shimmered under the light. It was otherworldly and eerily quiet. Even the desert birds had gone silent. Then Carol froze. Her hand shot up without a word. Tom stopped mid-step, instinct kicking in. "Over there," she whispered, "by the glade." Tom squinted past the sandstone ridge and saw it, a large shape moving through the clearing ahead. At first, it looked like a horse, but as it stepped into full view, Tom's breath caught in his throat. It wasn't just a horse. It was a giant. The mare stood in the clearing like a living monument, dapple-gray coat rippling in the wind, her muscles coiled beneath skin like polished granite. Her size defied logic. She had the fine, wild frame of a Mustang, but towered over any he'd seen in the wild, or captivity. Carol raised her camera slowly, silently firing off shots with her telephoto lens. "Jesus," Tom muttered. "That's no Clydesdale. That's a wild Mustang, at least 18 hands high." "She's not running," Carol whispered, zooming in on the mare's face. "She sees us. She knows we're here." The mare didn't move. Her eyes, dark and impossibly deep, locked with theirs. She blinked once, slowly, and then turned, pacing with a deliberate grace toward the glade's edge. And that's when Tom saw it. Beneath her flank, the mare's side rippled with movement, multiple distinct thumps. Not just a kick. Several. "Carol, did you see that?" "I saw it," she breathed. Tom's pulse quickened. He fumbled for the satellite phone in his pack. "We need help out here. This isn't just a fluke. If this mare's what I think she is, she might rewrite everything we know about equine biology." Carol lowered her camera. "You think she's pregnant?" "I think she's carrying something we're not ready to understand." It took over 30 minutes to get a signal strong enough to reach the Bureau. By the time they got through, the sun had begun to dip, casting the canyon in a burnt orange glow. They spoke with an enforcement liaison who promised to send someone out by morning. It wasn't enough for Tom. He left a message with an old colleague at the University of Arizona, a quiet, methodical equine specialist named Dr. Nate Ellison. If anyone could make sense of this, it was Nate. Just before sundown, a vehicle appeared in the distance, weaving its way through the narrow canyon pass. It was a black BLM truck, and behind the wheel sat Agent Ryan Fields, lean, stone-faced, and unimpressed. He stepped out, boots crunching on gravel. "You two are pushing the edge of your permit." Tom met him with a hard stare. "You'll change your tone when you see what we found." Fields followed them to the glade, and there she was, still standing there like a statue, the desert wind tugging gently at her mane. He exhaled sharply. "That's one hell of a horse." "She's not just one hell of a horse," Carol said. "She's not normal." Fields narrowed his eyes. "If she's domestic and someone dumped her—" "She's not domestic," Tom cut in. "She's wild. Everything from her gait to her posture to the shape of her ears screams it." Carol handed him her camera. "Here, you want proof? Look at the sequence. Look at her sides. She's not just carrying a foal, she's carrying something else." Agent Fields flipped through the images. The shift in his expression was subtle, but it was there, a flicker of unease. "We'll keep a safe distance," Tom said, "but someone from the university needs to examine her. She might be in distress." That night, they set up camp a few hundred yards from the glade. Carol kept her camera by her side, Tom his notes, and Fields his sidearm, pacing like a dog that couldn't settle. The wind picked up around midnight. It howled through the canyon, rising and falling in strange, harmonic gusts. Tom stared at the fire, lost in thought. He hadn't believed in omens since his son died, but this place felt like one. From the darkness, a low sound drifted through the air, a cross between a whinny and a guttural echo, ancient and hollow. Not a scream, not quite a call. Carol sat bolt upright. "Tom, did you hear that?" He nodded slowly. They both turned to look across the glade. The mare stood there, bathed in silver moonlight, staring directly at them, her ears forward, her eyes glinting. And from her throat came that sound again, low, mournful, not of this time. It echoed through the stone canyon like something awakening beneath their feet. By dawn, a fine film of dust covered everything, the tents, the gear, even the inside of Carol's camera lens cap. The canyon air felt denser somehow, not from heat, but from something else, something unseen but deeply present. Tom barely slept. Neither did Carol. Agent Field sat rigid in the front seat of his truck most of the night, lights off, engine running only once every hour to recharge the batteries. At exactly 6:14 a.m., the low rumble of tires over stone echoed through Red Hollow. "They're here," Tom said, already up, brushing off his flannel shirt. A beige Land Cruiser crept around the final bend, suspension groaning under the weight of gear lashed to its roof. The doors opened before the dust settled. Dr. Nate Ellison stepped out, tall and sun-worn, eyes hidden behind scratched aviators. He looked every bit the desert vet, stoic, no nonsense, with a quiet that demanded respect. Beside him, Dr. Mei Chen unfolded herself from the passenger seat, her black braid tucked under a faded baseball cap and a tablet already in hand. "Tom," Nate said by way of greeting, "you better not be wasting my time." Tom didn't even respond. He just turned and pointed toward the ridge. "She's down there," he said. "You'll want to see this yourself." The moment Nate laid eyes on Majesty, he stopped walking. "Holy hell," he whispered. May sucked in a quiet breath. "That's not possible." Majesty stood in the same place she had the night before, her massive frame backlit by the rising sun, coat shimmering like molten silver. Her ears twitched once. Then she turned and looked directly at the group. No fear, no flight, just acknowledgement. "She hasn't left that glade since we arrived," Carol said softly. May was already setting up the mobile ultrasound unit. "Something's off about her gait," she noted. "The way she shifts her weight like she's bracing for pressure in multiple places." "She's pregnant," Tom said. Nate grunted. "Every sign points to it. But—" He didn't finish the sentence. Instead, he took the stethoscope from around his neck, looped it over his shoulders, and started toward the mare with slow, deliberate steps. "Don't go in too fast," Carol warned. She's calm, but she's still wild. Nate nodded, keeping his pace easy. The impossible thing happened. Majesty didn't move. She didn't flinch. She simply lowered her head slightly, as if granting permission. He approached slowly, extending a gloved hand, letting her catch his scent. She sniffed, blinked slowly, and stood. "She's letting me in," Nate murmured. Dr. May followed, wheeling the equipment behind her. That's when Jake Moreno, the young intern, emerged from the vehicle, hauling an extra medical kit and trying to play it cool. He was in his mid-20s, lean but broad-shouldered, with tanned skin and a quiet, almost shy energy. He knelt a short distance away and locked eyes with Majesty. "Hey there, girl," he whispered, barely audible. Majesty flicked her ears and actually stepped closer to him. "She picked him," May said under her breath. "What?" Nate asked. May didn't answer. She just watched as Jake placed a hand gently against the mare's neck. Majesty exhaled, long and low. Within minutes, the team began the ultrasound procedure. Majesty remained still, not even a twitch, as May positioned the wand over her abdomen. The monitor blinked to life. May froze. Nate leaned over her shoulder. "Is the image clear?" "Crystal," she said. Her voice dropped. "Nate, count the chambers." 4. 4 heartbeats. 4 fetal forms, each distinct, each properly spaced, each in perfect position. Nate stumbled back a step. "That's not possible." "It shouldn't be," May replied, "but it is." Jake looked up. 4 foals? From one wild mare? "Not just wild," May murmured. "Primal. This isn't some fluke of nature. This is something older." Agent Field scoffed from the ridge. "You're telling me that horse is some kind of freak of evolution?" "No," Nate said coldly. "We're telling you she might be evolution's answer to something we don't even understand yet." Fields stepped closer. "I'm calling this in. That animal should be sedated and taken to a facility. You sedate her now, you'll kill her and all 4 foals," May snapped. "She's already cooperating," Jake added. "She wants our help." Tom stepped in. "We're not removing her. Not unless you're ready to explain to the world why you killed the most important wildlife discovery in decades." Fields glared, jaw tight, but he didn't speak. As May carefully collected blood samples, and Jake soothed Majesty with slow rhythmic touches, Nate stepped aside and called in a drone delivery unit. "We'll get these to UC Davis," he said. "Jennifer Walsh will prioritize analysis." By nightfall, the camp had shifted into a hushed reverence. No one raised their voice. No one left the fire's glow. They all waited. At 10:17 p.m., the satellite phone buzzed. Nate picked it up. "Nate," came Dr. Jennifer Walsh's voice, urgent and tense. "You sitting down?" "Standing next to a sleeping horse. What have you got?" "She's wild, right? Born in the wild, unmarked?" "Yes." "Then this shouldn't be possible. Her DNA includes multiple sequences we thought were extinct. She's carrying alleles linked to Pleistocene-era equines." Nate blinked. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying this mare has genes that haven't been active for over 12,000 years." Silence. Jennifer continued. "She's not just a biological anomaly, she's a genetic time capsule. Whatever's in her blood shouldn't exist." Outside, the wind began to rise, sweeping sand in long, whistling gusts between the rocks. Carol stirred inside her tent, restless, sensing something beyond her dreams. And then, faint but unmistakable, the canyon rumbled. A deep, slow pulse that rose from the stone itself, like the beating heart of something ancient waking below the earth. The storm came in fast. By nightfall, the clear desert sky had turned to ash. Lightning forked silently in the distance, the horizon pulsing like the breath of a sleeping giant. Every gust of wind stirred up the red dust of Red Hollow, cloaking tents and equipment in a gritty veil. Jake sat cross-legged near Majesty, the mare lying in the glade, her massive chest rising and falling with growing effort. Her eyes, usually calm and unreadable, were now sharp with urgency. "She's close," he whispered to May, who was monitoring her vitals. "Too close." May nodded. "Everything's accelerated. Her contractions are stronger, more rhythmic. She's going into full labor." Tom stood just outside the circle of light from the portable lanterns, arms crossed tight. Carol had her camera beside her but hadn't lifted it once. "It's happening tonight," Nate said, tightening his gloves. "Get the sterile kit ready. Everyone stays calm." Thunder cracked above them like a cannon blast. As the team scrambled into action, Majesty rolled slightly, groaning deep in her throat. Nate had delivered hundreds of foals in his career. Domestic, wild, and even some under duress in the field, but nothing prepared him for this. Lightning flashed again, this time closer. The first foal came fast. Genesis, a filly, dapple gray like her mother, but smaller, perfectly formed. Her ears flicked within seconds, nostrils flaring as she blinked into the darkness. She wobbled upright in under 5 minutes. "She's perfect," May breathed. "Absolutely perfect." Majesty nickered low, her head turning to inspect her daughter before another contraction gripped her body. The second came 28 minutes later. Aurora. This one slightly darker, with a white blaze down her face. Strong, alert, already stepping toward her sister with shaky, stubborn steps. By now, the rain had started, fat drops hissing into the sand. Jake tossed a tarp over the equipment and huddled next to Majesty, whispering soft encouragements. "She's doing this herself," he murmured. "We're just here to witness it." Thunder boomed again, louder, closer. The ground vibrated under their feet. The third foal arrived. Thunder. A colt, dark and muscular, with legs too long for his frame, but eyes already sharp. But the fourth, it didn't come right away. Majesty strained, her body trembling with the weight of what remained. Her breath turned shallow, uneven. Nate knelt beside her, tension etched deep in his face. "She's struggling. May, check the positioning." May slid her gloved hands along Majesty's side, eyes narrowing. "Too far back. It's stalled. We may lose it." "No," Jake cut in, voice hard and low. "We're not losing any of them." The rain intensified. A bolt of lightning struck a nearby ridge, lighting the entire glade in white for a single, breathless moment. And then Majesty screamed. A high, wild, primal sound that echoed through the hollow like something torn from prehistory. Jake acted without hesitation. He crawled to her rear, slipping his arms beneath the slick, trembling weight of the colt half emerged. "Come on, little guy, fight." He braced against the ground, pulled gently but firmly, guiding the shoulders, easing the strain. And then the foal slipped free. Spirit, smallest of the four. Pale gray, barely moving, no breath. "Clear as airway," Nate barked. Jake turned the colt, rubbing his chest, then mouth, whispering desperately. "No, not like this. Breathe." Nothing. Jake pressed harder. "Come on, buddy, come back." The foal twitched once, a gasp, then a shallow, ragged breath. Jake cried out, not in relief but in something deeper. He cradled Spirit's head in his lap as the foal coughed, then blinked, confused but alive. "He's got spirit," Jake whispered. "That's your name." Spirit Carol's hand touched her lips. Tears streamed freely down her cheeks. Tom said nothing, just turned away, face tight with something unspoken. Majesty, though exhausted, lifted her head and touched her nose to each of the four in turn. She made no sound, only watched, breathing them in like memory. They were all alive. All four. As the rain fell steady and quiet, the team gathered around, silent in reverence. Then the satellite phone buzzed. Nate answered, soaked and shaking. "Yeah?" Jennifer Walsh's voice came through, staticky but clear. "Nate, we ran a secondary scan of Majesty's genome." He crouched near a boulder for shelter. "Tell me." "There's something in the soil, specific trace minerals. When combined with consistent electromagnetic exposure, it could have acted as a genetic trigger." "A trigger?" "To dormant DNA," she said. "Majesty's genome includes sequences from Pleistocene equines, and those genes are awake, expressing. Fully." Nate's throat tightened. The canyon brought them back. "We think it did more than that," Jennifer added. "We think it selected her. Majesty isn't a fluke, she's a design." Nate turned slowly toward Majesty and her foals, who now stood, all of them standing, beneath the rain. And for a moment it felt like time itself bent, like the canyon had swallowed centuries and exhaled them into the bones of a wild mare. Later that night, when everyone was asleep, Carol went to check the camera traps she'd placed the day before. She flipped through images, mostly wind and rocks, flashes of rain. Then her finger froze. In the final image, at the edge of the glade, stood another horse, dapple gray, watching from the shadows. Same building, same eyes. But it wasn't Majesty. She wasn't alone. The canyon had changed. It wasn't just the weather, though the days were cooler now and the nights carried a brittle edge. It was something else. The wind moved differently. The silence felt deeper, as if the canyon were listening. Majesty and her foals, Genesis, Aurora, Thunder, and Spirit, were no longer confined to the glade. They roamed farther each day, venturing up ridgelines and weaving between rock arches that hadn't echoed with hoofbeats in 1,000 years. And wherever they stepped, the land seemed to recognize them. Carol kept her distance, camera always ready, but her eyes did more of the watching now. There was a rhythm to the way the foals moved, too deliberate, too synchronized. They learned without being taught, navigated terrain without hesitation, found water beneath dry stone where no animal should. "They're not just remembering," she whispered to Tom one evening. "They're remembering something that was never theirs." Jake followed closely behind Spirit most days, often in silent awe. The runt had grown lean and fast. He could climb narrow ledges like a goat, sense danger before it came, and once, when a sudden rock slide broke loose above their trail, he had reared and snorted before a single pebble had fallen. "He's not a horse," Jake said once to May. "He's a compass." May didn't laugh. She only nodded, her eyes always scanning, always calculating. She'd spent hours studying their movements, their social dynamics, the unspoken exchanges between Majesty and her offspring. "They're communicating," she said one morning as Thunder and Aurora nudged each other at the edge of a ravine. Not just with sounds, with looks, with muscle shifts, like a language passed down in blood. Agent Fields was less impressed. He paced the outer perimeter of camp like a wolf, chewing sunflower seeds and growing more agitated by the day. "This is getting out of hand," he muttered to Nate. "Every day they range farther. Someone's going to see them, someone's going to talk, and if word gets out, they'll come for her," Nate finished quietly. Fields nodded. "Poachers, tourists, conspiracy freaks, you name it. I'm not letting that happen. You won't get a say when the BLM steps in officially." But before any decision could be made, Majesty vanished. One morning, she was simply gone, her tracks leading east toward the cliffs beyond Red Hollow. Her foals remained behind for 3 days, grazing, playing, occasionally lifting their heads to scan the horizon. Then, on the 4th morning, they too disappeared. The camp descended into anxious silence. She wouldn't just leave, Carol insisted. She might be sick, May suggested, or hurt. Jake, though, didn't say a word. He simply stood at the edge of the ravine each dawn, waiting, listening. 2 weeks passed. Then, one morning, they returned. All of them. But Majesty wasn't alone. She came leading a small band of wild mustangs, 5 in total, among them a stallion. He was tall, muscled, with a chestnut coat and a silver streak down his mane. His eyes caught the sun and reflected it like molten metal. The team named him Ranger. Nate stared through his binoculars. Where the hell did she find him? No brand, May noted. No signs of domestication. He's wild. But look how he moves, Carol said, like he's following her, not leading. Majesty's body had changed too. She moved slower, her sides heavier. The signs were subtle, but unmistakable. She's pregnant again, May confirmed after careful observation. That stallion, he's the father. Jake stood frozen, eyes locked on Spirit, who bounded toward him through the canyon grass and leaned gently into his chest. "They're building something," Jake whispered. "She's building a herd." That night, as they reviewed footage from the latest motion sensor cameras, Tom nearly dropped the tablet. It wasn't just Majesty teaching the new Mustangs, it was the foals. Genesis nudged one of the wild colts toward a hidden water source. Thunder demonstrated how to scale a narrow bluff. Aurora taught the younger ones how to wait for windbreaks before crossing open plains. And Spirit, he simply watched, eyes distant, as if reading the future from the stars. "They're not just surviving," Nate said, "they're educating." The camp grew quiet again, until Jake finally spoke, voice low and trembling. "I never felt like I belonged anywhere," he said. "Not in vet school, not in my hometown, not even in my own skin, but out here, with Spirit." He looked away, wiping his face. May placed a hand on his shoulder. "Maybe that's what they're here for, not just to change science, but to change us." No one spoke after that. The stars above Red Hollow blazed brighter that night. The wind settled. The earth rested. And at the edge of the clearing, Majesty stood with Ranger by her side, eyes glowing faintly in the dark. She was pregnant again. But this time, the child she carried wasn't just part of the past. It was the future. Spring came to Red Hollow like a quiet promise. The canyon bloomed in patches. Desert lilies pushing through the rock, cactus buds unfurling pink and orange petals. The rains had passed, but their memory lingered in the air, in the freshness of the wind and the way the ground gave just slightly beneath each step. Majesty stood on the ridge above camp, belly round again, her foals gathered below like sentinels. Ranger remained close to her side, never asserting dominance, never leading, only watching, always watching. The herd had grown. Word hadn't spread, at least not publicly, but a few trusted conservationists had been brought into the fold. No press, no government press releases. Just whispered coordination between the university, a handful of tribal elders who once rode these lands, and a rotating team of scientists who knew how to keep their mouths shut. Dr. Elena Rodriguez from the Smithsonian had set up a temporary genetics lab in a modified trailer near the preserve's edge. Most days she spoke very little, too focused, too stunned. But that morning she called a meeting under the main canvas shelter. "I ran a triple-blind comparison," she said as everyone gathered. Nate, May, Tom, Carol, Jake, even Agent Fields now quietly cooperative. Majesty's genome doesn't just echo the ancient equines found in fossil beds across North America. She paused. It matches them, precisely. I've compared her sequence to a Pleistocene mare whose remains were found 100 yards from the glade. It's as if this canyon didn't just preserve bones, it preserved blueprints. Nate leaned forward. And her offspring? Hybridized perfection, Elena said. Each of them carries the ancient traits, but refined. Faster growth, improved bone density, superior spatial awareness. They're not freaks, they're optimized. May added quietly, and Majesty's second pregnancy? The fetus is already showing markers of genetic stabilization. That means this isn't a one-time anomaly. This is a new line. Jake looked down at his hands, then across the field, where Spirit stood at the edge of the herd, watching as a new group of young colts tried to mimic Genesis's leap across a shallow ravine. They didn't quite make it, but they got close. They're teaching them, Jake said, and the new ones are listening. Carol stepped forward, holding her camera like a sacred object. We can't keep this hidden forever. We won't, Nate said, but we'll protect it long enough for it to matter. Dr. Sandra Mitchell from the Bureau of Land Management, recently assigned to oversee the situation, had flown in from Washington the day before. She'd been briefed, skeptical, even dismissive, until she saw Majesty with her own eyes. Now she stood, hands on her hips, staring at the canyon like it had swallowed everything she thought she knew. I've spoken with Interior, she said slowly. We're declaring Red Hollow a Level 5 protected site, off limits to all but vetted personnel. The herd stays, no relocation, no tagging, no interference. Fields blinked. That's unprecedented. So is this, she replied. That evening, under a pale sunset, Majesty gave birth. No one intervened, no monitors, no sedatives, just quiet observation from a respectful distance. The foal emerged strong, darker than her siblings, legs long and lean, with an unmistakable glint in her eyes. Ranger nickered softly, and Majesty touched her nose to the newborn's flank. Nate's voice, caught in his throat, barely escaped. She's even stronger than the first 4. Elena confirmed it the next morning. Her markers are more consistent. No mutations, no regressions. We're looking at the first true next-generation foal. Carol named her Lyra, after the constellation that shone overhead the night she was born. In the weeks that followed, the older foals, Genesis, Aurora, Thunder, and Spirit, grew bolder. They began moving among Ranger's wild band with natural authority. Genesis led feeding routes. Aurora demonstrated how to identify shelter before a storm. Thunder challenged adult males not to fight, but to teach. And Spirit found the younger ones who struggled, stood beside them, and waited until they found their courage. They're not just inheriting memory, May said one day as she sat beside Jake, watching the foals from a distance. They're building culture, Jake nodded, and passing it on. The scientists continued documenting, but more slowly now, reverently. Not just researchers, they had become witnesses. One by one, new wild horses joined Majesty's growing herd. Drawn by some invisible current, they arrived over ridges and through arroyos, instinct guiding them like ancient trails once buried in the land itself. Nate compiled his final report, a summary destined for the National Academy of Sciences. Majesty is not an anomaly. She is a catalyst, a fulcrum between extinction and resurgence. Evolution, it turns out, doesn't always creep. Sometimes it remembers. Sometimes it leaps. The day Jake said goodbye to Spirit, the canyon was quiet. He approached the young colt, now nearly full grown, and placed a hand against his neck. Spirit turned to him, pressed his forehead against Jake's chest, then stepped back. Jake swallowed hard. "You were never mine to keep," he whispered. Spirit turned and galloped toward the ridge, Genesis beside him. Lyra followed, her gait uncertain but already mimicking their movements. Carol raised her camera and took one final shot. The three horses silhouetted against the evening light, manes rippling, legs sure. Tom joined her. "You got it." "I did," she said, "but it's not for publishing." "No?" she smiled. "Some stories belong to the earth." As the sun dipped below the canyon rim, Majesty stood atop the ledge, Ranger at her side, foals old and new circling below. And for a moment, time bent again, past, present, and future, collapsing into the sound of hooves against ancient stone. Majesty didn't come from the past. She came from the future we forgot to imagine.